Story 1. I can't vote because I'm a felon in a red state. Maybe I should run for president instead? Story 2. All the genuine answers are downvoted and appear at the bottom of the thread. You may not like them, but people clicked to read what they had to say. Those answers should be at the top. Story 3. I remember voting in the first election I was eligible for and feeling so excited. I believe it was Clinton versus Bush. I voted regularly until my 30s. I worked on a ranch and lived on the property for about 15 years, and I did not vote during that time because I was too tired and worn out. The idea of getting off work and going to a polling place to stand in line for an hour while covered in horse and cow manure sounded terrible. Then I took night classes, got a better job, and became much more willing to vote. I have voted in the last 3 elections. People can forget, or they may not know how hard it is to care about politics when you are broke, hurting, and exhausted. I think there are far more exhausted non-voters than people realize. Story 4. I kind of wish I had, but I do not regret the decision. I usually vote, but things went wrong on my end. My dog was attacked, and I spent the night at the emergency veterinary clinic. Thieves broke into my home. The car battery died. I lost a family member. I barely had enough energy to take care of myself, let alone vote. Maybe someone else could have held it together, but I was exhausted. Story 5. Voter turnout for this election was 58%, which is about the same as in presidential elections. Around 40% of the country do not vote. I know several people who are in that 40%. I asked them why, and their answer was almost always that they believe their vote does not matter. Story 6. I am an overseas voter. My ballot was redirected to the wrong address the first time and then never arrived after the address was corrected, even though there was plenty of time remaining. All my other mail from the United States arrived just fine. Story 7. I felt too uninformed about the issues. I should have voted, and this election opened my eyes. Story 8. Terrible. I have always hated politics. In my opinion, 99% are liars, only interested in gathering more wealth and promising whatever they need to promise regardless of whether they intend to follow through. I felt that until the two-party system is gone, votes do not matter because Democrats and Republicans are two sides of the same coin. Apparently, I was wrong. I did not expect it to be this bad. Maybe I trusted the checks and balances too much. This is worse than I ever imagined, and if I had known, I would have acted differently. If there is another opportunity, I will vote 100%. Story 9. I tried to vote on election day, but I was registered in a different county about 3 hours away and could not vote in my current area. I had only $3 for gas, which had to last 3 days, so I could not make the trip. Story 10. I live in a blue county surrounded by red counties in our state, Kentucky. My wife and many of my friends did not vote, but I did. We all knew it was moot because our county would be the only blue one. It felt almost pointless in that regard, and I understand why they did not vote. Story 11. Well, I did not deliberately abstain because my state sucks and hates people. It was so bad here that there were not even Democratic candidates. Our House representative ran completely unopposed on the ballot. Story 12. I have been politically neutral for most of my life. I refused to participate in the voting system because I believed the dichotomy was orchestrated to divide this country into two sides that hate each other more and more. It also disgusts me that the Electoral College is still a thing. It makes voting feel like when I was a little kid trying to play video games with my older brother and he would unplug the controller so I thought I was playing but I really was not. My refusal to participate in our voting system was a moral decision. That said, this is the first time I feel the axis has shifted to the point where rebelling against a system designed to divide the nation is no longer the top priority. I now feel an extreme level of guilt, and my fears about the fate of our economy are at the bottom of the list. The thing I am most worried about is the safety of anyone from an ethnic or racial minority in the United States. As a white male with what I consider a good set of objective moral beliefs, devoid of religious or political biases, I feel like I have failed so many people. I wish there were some way I could publicly apologize to the millions of people whose lives have been or will be ruined in the coming months and years. I have a sick feeling in the pit of my stomach because I know I made the wrong choice this time by not voting. To the people who are telling me I failed and mocking me for commenting, you are right. The whole point is that I know I am wrong, and I take full responsibility. My feelings of guilt and shame do not relieve me of that, and I do not want them to. My goal was not to receive support and affirmation. For those who have shown me support, I think you are the ones who can drive change among those on President Trump's side. For those who are hateful, even toward people who realize they are wrong, you are part of the problem. Continue to chastise me. I am fine with it and deserve it. However, consider how that mentality only serves to perpetuate the hatred and division felt by both sides, driving them to dig in even harder. Story 13. I voted. My girlfriend did not. When I asked why, she said that if voting mattered, they would not let us do it. As a Pennsylvania resident who was not able to track my ballot and seeing how my state turned out, I understand why she feels that way. Our voting system is not very democratic and has been declining steadily. This was the election I felt mattered most, but voting seemed like it would matter the least. I am glad I voted, but everything that has come out since makes me feel that it really is just a dog and pony show. Story 14. I will speak up. I did not vote. My state is so incredibly red that it does not matter. It is not just the president. Many down-ballot races do not even have Democratic candidates on the ticket. A Republican is running unopposed. I fought hard during the last voting cycle when it looked like there was a possibility of electing a Democratic candidate to the legislature, asking all my friends and family to vote. It was the closest race we have had in a while, and it still ended up being about a 15% difference. Story 15. Oh, I came to read the comments thinking someone would answer, but it is just full of people waiting to drag someone to shreds. Do you realize that without supporting people to change for the better, there is no point in asking this anyway? Story 16. I did not vote because I was deeply depressed, and thinking about anything political made it worse. My mindset at the time was that nothing mattered, especially politics and government. I believed things would happen regardless of my vote. As it turned out, voting did matter, and things can get worse. Seeing what is happening now makes me feel worse than when I chose to avoid it. I no longer feel I can avoid it. The world and America feel insane, and it upsets me that so many people do not see that. I deeply regret not voting and not doing my part. Story 17. This does not apply to me. I voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016. Donald Trump won. I did not vote in 2020. Joe Biden won. I voted for Kamala Harris in 2024. Donald Trump won. I do not think I should vote. Story 18. If voting did not matter, they would not keep trying to make it harder to vote. Story 19. My dad voted for the first time ever in the last election. He is turning 60 and is a Marine Corps veteran. When he said, "In November, when we go vote," I had to have him repeat himself. My mother voted for the first time in 2020. Neither of my parents was politically inclined. I voted for the first time at 18 in 2012, not knowing what voting even looked like. I have voted in nearly every election since. When I asked my dad what was spurring him, he said, "Well, Donald Trump is an idiot and disrespectful to veterans." Story 20. I voted for Kamala, but I can understand why people did not come out to vote. The Democratic National Committee betrayed Democrats. We wanted Bernie Sanders. They chose Hillary Clinton. We wanted a primary, but they pushed Joe Biden. When it became clear that Biden was too old, they presented Kamala Harris. Kamala was polling at 8% in 2020. The Democratic National Committee has undermined Democrats since 2016. The same thing happened when they pushed Hillary Clinton and sidelined Bernie Sanders. Many Bernie Sanders supporters felt betrayed, voted for Donald Trump, or did not show up. I hoped they would not repeat the mistake after 2016, but here we are. Story 21. I think there is also an assumption that these voters are well-informed. I live in a swing state and find myself mostly surrounded by people who lean right. My wife is the kind of person who can't help but passionately encourage people to pay attention, be involved, and use their voice. The biggest measurable impact I know she had was that she managed to convince a friend who voted for Trump in 2016 and 2020 to abstain this year. She had endless conversations with this person, showing them how the Democrats, while nowhere near perfect, could have a measurable positive impact on their life and how Trump and the Republicans would have a negative impact. He couldn't bring himself to vote for the Democrats, so he sat out. Her family members are poor, working class, rural people. None of them vote. They think it is pointless and do not pay attention. They all admit they would probably vote for Trump. Her mother admits that my wife is much more knowledgeable than she is about politics and current events because the mother works 2 jobs and does not have time to pay attention. She says it does not affect her anyway. When push comes to shove, she would have voted Republican. This election cycle, as far as I can tell, we did not get anyone to switch to voting Democratic if they were not already, and we got one person to abstain instead of voting for Trump. If the non-voters we know had been motivated to vote, we would have had another 15 or so votes for Trump. They will suffer for this and will likely not blame the Republicans for it. Our culture is deeply propagandized, and I genuinely do not know how to fix it. Story 22. As someone who voted for Kamala Harris in 2024, I am tired of this constant rhetoric that blames voters every time a Republican wins. Yes, it is frustrating. We need more people to vote in ways that best reflect our interests. But what does that say about the Democratic Party? Did they offer anything substantial other than saying they are not Trump? When are we going to hold them accountable for not proposing concrete policies and for too often caving to Republicans? We need to start having these conversations and change the Democratic Party. Otherwise, we will keep repeating this cycle. Story 23. The Simpsons said it best. My back is spineless. My belly is yellow. I'm the American non-voter. Story 24. Responses should differ depending on whether the recipient lives in one of the 7 swing states: Arizona, Nevada, Michigan, Georgia, North Carolina, Wisconsin, or Pennsylvania. Realistically, people outside those states had no practical way to cast a vote that would make a difference. If a preferred candidate had already won the voter state, that vote could not have affected the outcome. If another 5 million Californians had turned out for Harris, it would not have changed the result. Story 25. I do not think these people feel any different. They clearly did not feel that either Trump or Harris was worth voting for. If you think both candidates are unacceptable, it makes sense that you would not care. Story 26. If someone like this is on Reddit, why would they chime in on this thread and start their Monday by being excoriated online? Story 27. The last time you posted this, you attacked the people who answered honestly so badly that the moderators had to delete the thread. Story 28. I regret it. I felt I had no real choice. I see now how mistaken I was. This year marks the beginning of my political awareness and, hopefully, my involvement. Story 29. These responses are baffling. The prevailing message seems to be, Kamala Harris would have been just as bad as Donald Trump, which is demonstrably false. Would Kamala Harris have withdrawn the United States from the World Health Organization and nominated an anti-vaccination advocate as Secretary of Health and Human Services? Or are sweeping outbreaks of infectious diseases not going to affect you? Would Kamala Harris have allowed a technology billionaire unprecedented access to government systems and policymaking? Elon does not care what happens to the economy so long as he gets richer, and if that means eliminating his competitors and putting thousands out of work, he will do it. Will that not affect you? Donald Trump responded to a plane crash by blaming diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. He lies constantly and uses whataboutism when called on it. How is this man the same as Kamala Harris? These are a few examples out of dozens. You have no idea what he is doing outside of the moments that make headlines, do you? Do you know what all of the executive orders he has signed will do? You have no interest in it and pretend it will not touch you. That is not the case. Truly, the education system has failed the United States, and now it is only going to get worse. But who cares, right? Story 30. Here are some quotes from Reddit during the election campaign. I am not afraid of Donald Trump becoming a dictator. I would never vote for Donald Trump, but I am not sure Kamala Harris will be any better. I do not believe anything in Project 2025 will be implemented. He is not afraid of it because the dictator line was a joke taken out of context. Also, Project 2025 is not a Republican platform. It is a collection of proposals for policy positions, some tame ones that will be supported and some less tame ones that will not. All because some of you thought Harris did not deserve your vote, and because she did not go through the proper primary process. You let a good one get away. Story 31. Rather than shaming people who did not vote, who likely would have supported each candidate in roughly the same proportions as the general electorate, ask what about the party and the candidate was so off-putting that people chose to vote for Donald Trump instead. In other words, perhaps the problem is not the electorate but the party. The continuous stream of loaded questions from angry Reddit users is tiring, especially since moderators do not consistently follow their own rules about removing posts that are clearly meant as downvote bait when real answers are given. Story 32. The old get over here, I want to talk down to you approach. Nice. Story 33. I couldn't avoid them telling us daily about genocide, Kamala, and now suddenly nobody cares about it? Story 34. I live in a state where the outcome was predetermined from day one. I voted, but my vote felt meaningless. There were only 2 Democratic candidates on my ballot for all federal and state positions. With the Electoral College, I completely understand why people in my position choose not to vote for president. Story 35. Exactly what I expected a year ago is happening now. Democrats refuse to make any changes no matter how poorly they are polling. They lose to Trump because they promised nothing and received nothing in return. Trump causes chaos. Weak Democrats refuse to fight back, and national furor rises into protests. Now the question is whether Trump will crack down on the protests and whether that will lead to people standing up against it or accepting it. Either way, American democracy must be replaced because we have seen the limits of its ability to protect us from the rise of fascism. Story 36. How do you feel about your vote now? What about later? All of this within 2 weeks. Story 37. Sort by controversial and see the real answers people are giving. It's funny how you are proving their point. They do not care about elections because they feel their opinion does not matter, and all the replies are shaming them for not voting and calling them naive. Story 38. This is the opposite of the answer you were looking for. I voted in 2024 for Kamala. I don't think I'll be voting in 2028. Story 39. Well, I feel pretty pissed that Democrats could not come up with anyone worth voting for. Story 40. This post feeds into a deeper problem in our society. The original poster and others blame non-voters and even Donald Trump voters. Why? Don't you realize that's exactly what they want you to do? Don't you see that they want us at each other's throats? Kamala Harris failed spectacularly to attract enough votes to defeat Donald Trump. It was her failure. I say that as someone who did vote for her. It was a terrible, sluggish, and unconvincing campaign. She sought and failed to gain the votes of conservatives by cozying up to billionaires and the Cheneys. She could have won by actually speaking to the issues that matter to left-leaning people who chose not to vote for her. But every time she emphasized how lethal our military is or reaffirmed her support for the genocide being perpetrated by Israel, it reminded many of us that the Democratic Party has no interest in supporting actual leftist principles. It only seeks to gain and retain power and money for itself. No person is obligated to vote one way or another. The onus is on the candidate to convince people to vote for her, and she did not. You should be angry at the Democratic Party and at Kamala Harris for botching the election so badly. There are a large number of people who are hungry for a true left progressive candidate but cannot stomach a milquetoast former attorney general turned lackey for the billionaire class. Reaching out to your fellow middle and working class citizens is the right response. Being angry at them gets you nothing. There are 2 parties representing the billionaire class. Their primary difference of opinion is how to best exploit the rest of us. Story 41. I voted third party for president in one of the deepest blue states. If I lived elsewhere and my vote mattered, I would have voted differently, but it does not matter, so I can vote symbolically. I refuse to give legitimacy to the Democrats. I have voted for them for decades, and I am sick of their inability to accomplish anything. They need to change if we are ever going to get out of this. And the vote blue no matter who mentality lets them avoid change and become more corrupt and inept over time. As long as there is a Trump-like figure to compare themselves to, they believe they can avoid working for votes and will sink further into corruption and incompetence. I feel some schadenfreude about Harris losing the popular vote because it might force them to reflect on how poorly they function as a political organization. They have to change. Story 42. I caucused for hours for Obama in 2008 and knocked on thousands of doors for him in 2012. I voted Green in 2016 and 2020, but I put up a lawn sign and voted for Harris. I was angry about it the entire time. I have been angry at the Democratic Party since the middle of Obama's first term. Maybe I was young and idealistic, but Obama was supposed to be different. He was supposed to be the Democrats' Reagan. Instead, he felt like Bush 3.0, and Hillary Clinton seemed like she might be worse, which is why she was passed over in 2008. Then Biden, who seemed like the Joe Manchin of his day, came next. Then Harris, a suit so empty you could practically see the corporate strings. I hate the modern Democratic Party. So I have a question for you. How does it feel knowing Bernie was supposed to be our president, not Trump? Story 43. I voted third party in the presidential race, so I guess I count as someone in that group. Someone else pointed out, in my opinion, that those people would not comment here since they know they will be attacked and unable to respond because of downvotes. To answer the question, I still stand by my decision. Both parties' candidates were unacceptable and did not deserve my vote. I do not trust either of them. I would be dissatisfied with a Harris administration as well. Story 44. I think more people would vote if we eliminated the Electoral College. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.